Hello and welcome to The Art of Conversation, a radio show dedicated to a college course dedicated to the art of conversation. This program is brought to you by the Eileen G. Jones Honors College and the Department of Communication Studies, Media, and Journalism at Commonwealth University, Bloomsburg. I'm your host, Eric C. Miller, Professor of Communication Studies. Each semester I teach a class available in your course catalog as Honors 211, The Art of Conversation, that focuses on the ancient art of dialectic. That is, the collaborative process by which knowledgeable peers pursue the truth through focused question and answer. After a few weeks of wading through the theory on these matters, our students spend about 10 weeks in practice holding twice weekly 75-minute deep dives into topics and questions of their choosing. Our theme this semester is the state of the earth and the good life upon it, granting students considerable leeway in their choice of content. Every week, twice a week, we're talking about how to live better lives on this planet. My guests today are Maggie and Madeline, a pair of student moderators who this week asked our class to think a bit about student debt and the potential benefits and drawbacks of free college. Maggie, Madeline, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So before we get going, we always like to ask our guests a little bit about themselves. In particular, your major, your career plans, and your general thoughts on taking this class so far.
Well, I'm Maggie. I am a health science major with a focus in pre-PA. I'm a senior. I don't know, when I grow up, I want to be a physician assistant and also maybe have an ice cream stand. That's honestly my life goals.
My name is Madeline. I'm a sophomore media and journalism major. I think when I'm older, I want to work in marketing or sports or something like that. And I've enjoyed this class. I like the topics, the different topics the students have been picking each week. I think they're interesting to hear about and their thoughts about it.
Well, I'm glad. And I'm interested in your topic as well, one that's definitely relevant to our class as well as to our listening audience. And that is the relationship between student debt and college tuition, how these things might be mitigated were college tuition to be erased and the college education made free. But that, of course, is a fraught issue with lots of implications, ins and outs, different elements to discuss. We often frame our discussions in this class around a central research question. How would you frame the question that you posed to the class this week?
I think the wording we chose was, should college be free?
Should college be free? And are you talking about public colleges, private colleges, all colleges?
I think it would work best for public colleges just because I feel like the states already are involved, whereas private colleges really are their own thing and are really funded differently.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like public universities, they get more state funding. The private ones.
Okay, so in no small part because the state would be funding the free college, presumably, although we'll get into that. We would be treating state institutions differently perhaps than private ones. It's also the case that private colleges are way more expensive than public universities, in some cases by design. Maybe we'll start by identifying the exigence here. That is, how bad is student debt right now?
When I was researching it, I saw the student debt thing is over $1 trillion, and just it takes people so long to repay their student loans that I feel it just kind of eats them alive. I feel they can't do what they want to do, or they're just stressed all the time about their finances and whether or not they should go to college or not based on the money aspect.
No, I think I think college as a whole is an interesting concept. You leave your family to go live at this place and learn, and you also volunteer to pay thousands of dollars to do it. I'll be sitting in my classes and I'll hear someone be like, yeah, I'm going to be walking away here with about $130,000 in debt. And I just think that's crazy that, our lives honestly haven't really started. We haven't really been able to, start a career, and people are starting their lives in the negatives.
Well, I think that is one of the key questions driving this discussion. It's something that came up a few weeks ago when I was sitting at this desk having a conversation with two people about the drinking age and this question of whether or not 18-year-olds should be legally allowed to drink alcohol. One of the kind of tangential questions they raised was, should 18-year-old people be legally allowed to take out large loans that they might have to spend decades of their lives repaying? Or if 18 is too young to make responsible choices drinking beer, shouldn't it also be too young to make major financial commitments for the next few decades of your life? Do you think it's unfair to ask teenagers to make a decision about whether or not to take out tens of thousands of dollars in a loan?
I feel like no matter like how much the loan is, like it's still gonna take you so long to pay it off. And I feel like a lot of like 18-year-olds don't really like understand that like sure you have like the money now and you can spend it. I know a lot of people, they get like their refund check, they're like, oh, I can just spend this money on whatever, but like they still have to like pay that back. And I feel like
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, from personal experience, when I, like, my freshman year, after that, I kind of was thinking more about it, but even when looking at schools, I was kind of, when I get out, I'll be making money, like, I'll pay it back without a second thought. And now, like, as I'm in my fourth year and I see how much accredited and how much it's going to go up in interest, which is, like, double what I even took out, that's kind of where I was like, oh, this is kind of crazy. Also, like, the interest on student loans, like, maybe that's another discussion, but I don't know, like, the fact that it's probably going to double in value by the time as well, that maybe might not be a good system.
Well, yeah, I think that's part of the concern, that teenagers are ill-equipped to deal with these sorts of large life choices, and they might be vulnerable to predatory forces who are trying to profit, perhaps at their expense. And I think a lot of people make that decision the same way you're describing, which is, I'm going to take this money now, I'm going to spend the next 4 years going to school, taking classes, getting a degree that will get me a job, that will make me the money that I need to pay this loan off later. When you make that decision, you don't have a strong concept of the passage of time yet. You think this will come due someday, but it's someday off in the distant future. And then you learn that it's not that distant. You're in college for the same number of years that you're in high school, typically. And that means you got to start paying that loan off sooner rather than later. But anyway, when people make that calculation, either take out a loan and go to college, or don't take out a loan and don't go to college, very many of them choose to take out the loan and go to college. And that suggests that in their minds, it is worth the trouble. It's worth the expense. Why, in your view, is college important enough to take on this sort of debt at the very outset of your adult life?
I don't know, I'd say, like, when I was a senior, every career I wanted, I would have to go to school and then further school. And then I came here, and my freshman year, I took a sociology course, and it kind of just, like, changed my whole perspective on college. And instead of looking at it as, like, that's my step for a career, I kind of looked at it as more of, like, this is just, like, an opportunity to learn as much as I want to learn, like, at a higher level and, like, really dive into it. And I don't really know if I'm going to get that opportunity again. That's kind of why I really like the setup of the class, because I feel like you, like, truly learn when you, like, discuss it and get into, like, the depths of the topic rather than just, like, sitting in a lecture hall. I would like to see more classes be discussion-based, because I feel like that's when you get the most out of it, and it, like, provokes that thought and kind of makes you more of, like, an independent thinker, which I feel like is important. Being a new member of society is, like, having your own thoughts and, like, knowing yourself.
for me in high school, I feel like it wasn't like an option to not go to college. I feel like my parents, they never like outright said like you have to go to college, but it was sort of like implied. And I feel like I just like sort of tried to like pick a career path based on like the majors that the school had. And I feel like college is just important to like, I feel like it like bridges the gap between like your high school self and you as an adult. Because I feel like if like I like started like working a job when I was like 18, I feel like that would just been like such a huge change. I don't know how it would have like, I feel like college is a good like gap with like a bridge.
I was going to say, yeah, off of what you were saying about that step, I also, I guess across my 4 years, have noticed a big change in maturity. And I do look back and think, without this kind of like stepping stone into the world, I think I would have been extremely overwhelmed and not have reacted well.
Okay, so in one sense, college is like the 13th grade. You never really considered not going. It's just the next thing that you do. It's also the case that for some careers, potentially one that you would want, you have to have a 4-year degree in order even to qualify for the job. And so it feels necessary in that way too. But then you also note that coming to college allows you the opportunity to take interesting classes and develop your thinking, become a better critical thinker, a more well-rounded individual, and also a more mature individual. Because while you're taking these classes, the years are passing and you're getting older and changing into an adult. And I think all of that is fair. One thing you also noted, or as I recall came up in the discussion, is that people who go to college, so far anyway, tend to make more money on average in the course of their lifetime. Do you recall what the figure was?
Isn't it $1 million?
I was thinking it was around $1 million.
Yeah, I think they said about $1 million more, like around, yeah.
Which is also part of the reason why people calculate, I believe, that taking on loans is not that big of a deal because you're going to be making all this money. And that money can go towards paying this off. But loan repayments might eat into that benefit pretty quickly over time. Another issue that came up in the course of our discussion that I think is useful to ground our conversation here today is the matter of whether a college education should be thought of as a personal and a private pursuit or a contribution to the public good. If we're going to talk about who should foot the bill for college, whether that be the individual student who goes to college or the larger community through taxation, I think this is a question you have to kind of hash out first. And so maybe we should start there. How do you think of it? Is your college education your private business, or does the larger community have a stake too in your future?
I don't know. We're mandated to go to school from K through 12. So, obviously, I feel like people would agree that education's important, but kind of when it gets to college, people, I don't know if they just, stop thinking it's important, and that's why they think it's a individual entity. But, for example, for, my profession, I want to be a physician's assistant. I'm taking that upon myself to go to school for about 6 or 7 years. If no one decided to go to school for that, you would have no doctor. You need education to have people that provide public services that we need for a functioning society. And for doctors, for example, they go to school for however long. Obviously, they're financially well, but they put a lot of time and money into school, and you need them, or else everyone would be hurt or dying or something. So maybe that argument only applies to certain majors, but at the same time, no, even entertainment. No matter what your major is, our society's set up in a way where, it's surrounded by work, and, you depend on people's work. So it's kind of maybe it's not an even trade, but definitely people benefit off others' education.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at here. I mean, in Pennsylvania and here at a Pennsylvania state school, your education is already in part subsidized by state tax dollars. That's why if you go to school in state, you pay a lower tuition rate than people who come from out of state because they and their families haven't been contributing to the tax pool, right? And so in that sense, I feel like it's pretty clear the citizens of the Commonwealth think they have some stake in your success because you, that is each successive cohort that graduates from this university, is going to go out and perform important jobs and serve in public offices and do important things. And the state has an interest in replicating itself into the future. In that sense, the public is invested. And yet when you talk about making college entirely free, I think that's when a lot of people are like, wait a second, shouldn't the person who is going to school and taking the classes be the one to pay for that, or at least for the most part, because they are the one who is pursuing a career path, who's trying to make their own way in the world. When people say college should be free, how do they make that argument?
How do many people
what's the argument for free college?
Well, the major one I would probably say is reduce inequality, just financial inequality, providing the same opportunity of a further education without that barrier.
So as long as individual students are responsible for paying their way through college, perhaps with loans, then people who are lower on the like socioeconomic ladder face more of an obstacle to get an education, and free college evens the playing field.
Yeah, like for example, when taking, at least for me, I need someone to co-sign my loan. So if your parent doesn't have a good credit score, you actually can't take out a loan and you lose that option of paying for it. So then you're kind of just stuck. Whereas like your parents' mistake now affects you because you don't have that same opportunity because it's too much to the point where you have to take out that loan. I know it might not apply to the majority of people, but there's definitely cases out there where I feel like that's the money is the thing in the way.
Okay, and so free college is one method of creating greater equality in the United States. What else?
I feel like it just like benefits society as a whole because like if more people graduate college, our society as a whole is more educated and people can get jobs that actually pay them well, then they can put that money back into the economy and just like it's like a cycle.
Yeah, that was one thing, the video, a part of our content, it was saying that college graduates are also more likely to pay into the system than take away, contributing to being a better citizen.
That's one thing that I find myself harping on in classes all the time, especially when we start talking about college as a means to career preparation. The argument that we have been making in the liberal arts for forever is that a 4-year college education is intended not to generate employees first and foremost, but to generate citizens. That is, people who are educated and thoughtful and critical thinkers and well-rounded with knowledge about a lot of different things, and that makes them better able to participate in public life, to serve their communities, to cast votes, et cetera, et cetera. And so the idea that everyone could go to college freely, regardless of their family's wealth or lack of it, and get a broad-based education to prepare them for citizenship is very attractive to me. I mean, it's part of our mission here in the liberal arts college. So if the community has to foot the bill by paying higher taxes to make sure that all young people have the option to go to college for free if they want, then that community is essentially reinvesting in its own quality. I think that's the argument here. In your experience of being in college so far, do you find that persuasive? Do you think if everybody had this experience that the community, the state, the country would be better off?
I think so. I'm also from a college town, so I feel like half like the town feels like the college because there's like a nuisance, like annoying, and the other half like actually like likes them and like they bring in like business for like the local businesses, and I feel like that would like help like solidify that they won't just think the college kids are like annoying and ruining their town, but they're actually like benefiting them.
Well, especially here, I have been made aware, I guess, that when the college kids leave, this population of the town's like 1,000 or like 2,000. Like it's mostly college students that like fill.
It's not quite that low, but when students leave, the dynamic
like
of the town changes pretty dramatically.
Yeah. But besides that, I don't know if I can speak for every college student, but I'm in a bunch of clubs where we do like a lot of service within the community. The Honors College is making blessing bags, which is like just basic needs for the winter. So we're making calls, seeing where we could donate it, like just make a box for like the public library for those that need it. Like colleges do kind of give back close community. Maybe it's not as emphasized as it should be with free college and the big emphasis on being like an investment into the future of America. We should definitely prioritize that as well.
I think what I'm asking here, too, has to do with college students and citizens as economic actors, or thinking about these things in terms of economic relationships. Because when we take the position in the College of Liberal Arts that 4-year college education is not about making you an employee or even about making you money, it's about making you into a better, more well-rounded, more interesting, more thoughtful person. We're imagining the community getting paid back in a way that's maybe non-monetary. We are imagining that students will get this education and return to their communities and bring quality that maybe doesn't translate to dollars and cents, you know? Maybe it translates to happier lives, better conversations, better relationships, more interesting, thoughtful ways of looking at the world. I think that's both really important and very difficult to quantify, because we're always asking, how much does college cost versus what is your average yearly salary when you complete a 4-year degree in whatever major? How much are you going to bring back to your community in terms of economic gain based on the knowledge you acquired for this price? It's all numbers, you know, it's all dollars and cents. And if you want to major in art, God help you, because everybody in your orbit is going to be saying, no, don't do that. What are you thinking? You're going to major in literature, philosophy? Are you kidding me? You need to major in business. You need to major in accounting. You got to get paid, because student debt places this incredible burden on students from the second they sign the paperwork. And so they have to get out there and try and find job prospects that are going to be lucrative, first and foremost, whether they like that or not. That, I think, is not really what college is supposed to be. And we talked about this in class too, that like if you want to get job training and you want to make money straight away and you don't want to go into tons and tons of debt, then maybe you should look into a trade or a vocational school, because those are good careers. They are well paid, and you don't have to take out tens of thousands of dollars in loans to go get that particular education. But that education is not the same thing as a liberal arts education, a 4-year college education. It's got different goals and different ends. And so I wonder if the community can be persuaded that the sort of stuff that we teach here is valuable enough to warrant their buy-in on that level, the sort of buy-in that would stand a chance of making college free. So far, it seems like many or most of them are not, right? Because college isn't free. Is that your read on the situation?
Yeah, I would say I definitely, like you said, like there's the burden of the student loans, so people go to get a job. And then it's a saying that, like, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, where because of the student loans, you can't really do that, because then you're also going to be struggling as well your whole life. But yeah, I feel like if the community paid towards it, you could, as we touched on earlier, like explore your own self-interest and do what you're passionate about. And that would honestly just make happier people. And I think just happier people would contribute to a better society, because it would help to remove like all the negativity and conflict.
If you're just joining us, my name is Eric C. Miller, and I'm sitting down today with Maggie and Madeline. We're talking about student debt, free college. We'll be back right after these words. Welcome back to the Art of Conversation Radio. Our guests today are Maggie and Madeline. The topic today, free college, student debt, etc., etc. On the first half of our show, we talked a little bit about the issues underwriting free college and a little bit about the arguments for. In particular, the suggestion that making college free for everybody will eliminate economic barriers, create greater equality, and generate generation after generation of well-educated, thoughtful, well-rounded, interesting, curious citizens, which would be good. But we don't have free college yet, and maybe we won't. And the reason for that, I think, is that it is not a universally popular idea. There's a lot of people who are opposed to it. And so maybe you can bring us up to speed on their perspective. What is the case against free college?
Overcrowding was a concern. The one I found really interesting was credential inflation, meaning like jobs will start to require everyone to have a college degree. People think that would also potentially reduce the quality of a college education because it's free.
Okay, so first, other people have had to pay for college in the past, And it's just kind of like a status quo argument. That's the way it was done. That's the way it should continue to be done. We talked a little bit on the front half about how it is generally considered, I think, by a lot of people, that your college education is your business. It's your investment in yourself. Therefore, you should be the one to pay for it, not other people who might not benefit, at least directly. There is this suggestion that in America, people don't like being taxed. They don't like paying high taxes. They want their taxes lower. And in very many cases, they don't want to pay high taxes specifically to benefit other people. What is the thinking here behind the idea that making college free would lead to a lowering of the standard?
The belief behind that idea is because it's free, people just care less. Students wouldn't care to do their work or care to work hard anymore. Professors will kind of just go off and do more what they want.
So having to pay your own way through college, potentially having to take on large amounts of debt to do so, makes the experience real to you in a way that inspires you to work harder, because now you're driven by the urgency of having to pay off the debt. And if you don't have that debt anymore, then maybe you'll just goof off the whole time.
Yeah, I think they're saying that because you're on the hook for all this money, you have more of a personal stake in the game of paying for your college, or like, I guess, having that hold you accountable in that sense.
Maybe it would take a little bit of imagination, but I'm going to ask you to use your imagination for a second and pretend that you don't have to pay tuition. You don't have to take out loans. Do you think that you would work less hard at school than you are now?
Well, actually, my dad works for the college, so I get free tuition, and thankfully my parents have been putting money into a college fund like my entire life, so I don't have any loans. I know all about that, so I know like the amount of effort that they've put in, so I feel like I do not take having no debt for granted.
Okay, but it's not like your expenses were just erased.
Yeah.
You, it sounds like, are driven in part by the knowledge that your parents had to hustle in order to get your costs covered.
Yeah.
So isn't that a different version of the same motivation?
I guess a little bit, but like, I feel like if people know that tuition was free for everyone, I feel like if they knew, a lot of people would like take that into consideration and be like, oh, I should like work hard and actually do my work because of the other people who are paying for it.
I know for a fact that I would work just as hard. I'm kind of just basing it off of, like, again, my whole high school experience. All of that was free, and I worked just as hard as I work now. I honestly probably worked harder in high school than I work now, while I have a personal stake in the game, I guess.
If the argument for free college is that it would open college up to everyone, it seems like there is a converse argument on the other side that making college expensive maybe weeds out those applicants who aren't as serious and don't intend to work as hard. If I want to go to college and just goof off Animal House style for 4 years, maybe taking on those large loans functions as a deterrent, such that I decide, it's not worth it. I'm not going to do that. And so I've just saved, some taxpayer money, and I haven't wasted anyone's time with my unserious attitude towards college. Do you think that's a legitimate positive good of the expense?
I feel like, as with anything, you can't completely regulate it. Yes, there might be a few like that, but I feel like you could put things in place like we have now, like students can go on academic probation if they're not with a certain GPA, and if they don't get it up the following semester, then they'll be kicked out of school. The school could easily implement like GPA requirements to know that people are taking it seriously and are doing their work.
One of the issues that was raised in class is that if you make college free, then maybe everybody would go, and the universities would have kind of the opposite problem from what they have now in like an era of declining enrollment, which is that you would have skyrocketing enrollment. Everybody would want to be here, and that would place an enormous burden on the taxpayer because now the gates have been thrown wide. Everyone's coming in. Everyone's got expenses now that need to be paid by someone. Does that seem like an obstacle to free college for you?
I think it's definitely something that would need to be figured out, but honestly, I don't see it as a problem. I see it as a good thing that people want to go and get educated and have a college experience. I don't know what solutions would look like, whether it would be more colleges potentially opening up or reopening colleges that have been closed previously. I like the one idea that was brought up in class. That was also like maybe depending on your GPA in high school, whether you qualify for free college that way. I know the argument's for free college, but I don't know if like a blanket free college right off the bat is the best issue. I definitely think it would be the learning process, and I definitely think there's some things that people probably haven't thought of, such as more people going to college before.
Yeah, I feel like requirements and like regulations to get the free college is a good thing. I feel like they shouldn't just like give it to anyone. I feel like you have to like prove that like you care.
Yeah, you're suggesting that maybe there would be a GPA standard in high schools that would make someone eligible or not. And I know in class it was also pointed out that if you had this enormous rush of applicants, you would put colleges back in a position to be more selective in who they admit. Because right now, when colleges are run as businesses and enrollments are in decline, you have colleges that are lowering their admission standards across the board to try and compete with one another and get more and more students who they treat as customers to bring their money. But if everybody wanted to go, then colleges would not be able to accommodate everyone, and so they would have to become selective again. And maybe that would put them into a better position. Maybe it would create a new motivation for students to excel and to work hard and to get better grades. Maybe in that sense, it stands a chance of kind of flipping the script on at least one of the problems that is faced by higher education today. Another thing that came up in class, and this is something that I've been thinking about actually ever since, has to do with the value of a college education in an age of increasing automation and artificial intelligence. Because so far anyway, students go to college to get a career with the understanding that they'll make more money than they would otherwise. But as we discussed, there are a number of concerning projections that suggest that in the coming decade or two, artificial intelligence will take over lots and lots of jobs that have traditionally been done by people. And in many cases, these are jobs that you have to go to college to get. I find myself wondering what the future of higher education looks like when we can no longer draw students towards particular career paths when those career paths have been foreclosed on by AI. I mean, how do you think about that when you look ahead and you still have a career path in front of you and you learn that AI is creating efficiency by taking over human jobs? Does that concern you?
I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm a little unconventional for my age. I'm not a big technology person. I feel like technology has ruined a lot, just quality stuff you could experience in life. I think maybe they'll try to have AI take over jobs, but I think we'll see a reduction in quality that way. Like, for example, like if you have AI or computers replacing teachers, you miss the connection, you miss the kids who might be struggling more than others, and AI can't like see these kids and be like, oh, this could be why they're struggling. Like, I think some people would be left behind in that sense. Same with the medical field if you're ever trying to do that. I think that's really risky because that's people's health that you're messing with. Implementing AI to take over jobs. Just, yeah, again, you lose that human connection and the quality.
Yeah, I feel like jobs like in the medical field, like doctors and like teachers, like I feel like you can't like replace that with AI. I know we're talking about that in class, how like there is like online school, but like kids don't learn anything from online school. I feel like we learned that from COVID, and I feel like the kids like really need that in-person connection, especially the social connection with their peers too. I feel like all of that ties into it. So I feel like AI can't take over any jobs.
I don't know. I recently saw a video of a surgical robot making origami out of a tiny piece of paper just to show how dexterous it was when handling tissues and things.
But I guess my question off that, so say it's programmed to perform the surgery. They find out what's in there is not what they originally thought. And like AI can't recognize that. Whereas like a human would be like, something's not right here and stop.
I mean, maybe.
Maybe it's the lack of eyes that AI just can't see things that I'm like.
Well, here's what I mean. The value of college for a lot of people historically has been that it's a stepping stone to career. It's possible in the years ahead that artificial intelligence will change this such that college is not necessarily a stepping stone to a career, or at least it's not a stepping stone to the same types of careers that it has been in the past. And if colleges cannot promise their students that you will make $1 million more on average with this degree, then I'm not sure those students are still going to find it worthwhile to come here. In changing the face of the workplace, AI stands a chance of changing the face of higher education too, just as like a downstream effect. And this was actually my favorite part of our conversation yesterday in class, when we took a step back, I think, from the career path angle and said, well, what else does it do for you? You know, what is good about college? To me, the best things about college have nothing to do with your career path. They have to do with hanging out on a campus, sitting out on the quad when the sun comes out in the spring, or hanging out with your friends, or being a part of a club, or living in a communal environment with a bunch of people, and having all of these sorts of great social experiences that people end up looking back on wistfully for the rest of their lives after they live here. And I also think that there is something special about living in such a communal fashion with so many other people and having the chance to take classes with them and maybe talk about ideas or try to answer big questions with them. It's this unsung aspect of college, or maybe not unsung. I mean, it's this aspect of college that everybody knows about, everybody loves about college. But when we talk about, you know, where you're going to go, why are you going to go there, what career, it's treated like wallpaper. You know, it's treated like a secondary or tertiary aspect of college, when to me it's primary. Like it's the big element here. And if college wasn't so expensive, I think more people would be able to appreciate how special that part of it is. But because it is so expensive and because you have to take out loans, it's like we're losing the ability to love college just because it's a special time in your life. And yet you treat it instead like, okay, how's this going to get me paid? And that's, to me, that's a problem. Does it bother you?
Yeah, like I know some people, they're like, oh, I can't hang out, I have to study for this test because like they need to pass this class like in order to graduate, or they have to work 2 or 3 jobs and they can't like do like the fun social stuff because they have to work their way through college. That really affects them, makes them not like hate college, but like not have like a good college experience that they would have had if they didn't have to worry about the finances of it.
Yeah, and to be clear, having to take tests to graduate, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not trying to say that college shouldn't be rigorous or that it shouldn't be a challenge. It absolutely should. But I think when we hear about someone who's working 2 or 3 jobs to pay their way through college, we tend to treat that person, I think, as like an object of respect. Like, okay, yeah, you know, get out there, work hard, pay your way. And of course, it does deserve respect. But to me, that person should not be put in that position to begin with.
Yeah.
Because while it is impressive what they're doing, the fact that they have to do it that way means that they're missing out on so much that's so central, so important to this life experience.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a complaint that I always make in the class, which is that it's another way in which human beings are treated as machinery for the economy. And that's like the only way we're able to think about ourselves anymore. as workers, as employees, as economic actors who have to approach life day in and day out in terms of dollars and cents.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that's one of my biggest pet peeves about the way we live is I just don't understand why we like devote all our time just to working to make money just for like 20 minutes to spend it and say hi, just go back to work. Like I feel like obviously like in college, but I feel like it can also apply to the real world that we're just always so competitive and always so going that people get tired, people get burnt out, people become unhappy. We're overworked, and I don't understand why our whole life is revolves around working. I definitely get making a living. I think it's good to work hard and have drive, but to have our lives consumed, you spend majority of your day at work or sleeping, and then whatever other time, that's when you have time to hang out with the people that actually matter and spend time doing things you actually want to do.
Well, it's something I try to impress upon students when they, when they talk about college as being all about getting a job, finding a career. One of the things that I point out is that life is about more than having a job. The job you do is important. It's your livelihood, no question. But no matter what job you do, and no matter how much you love it, and I do love my job, but I look forward to the weekend. I'll be honest. I look forward to like the breaks that we take, because the stuff that is really valuable to me is the time that I spend with my family, the time that I spend with my friends, the time where I get to kind of relax and unwind and just be social and pursue my hobbies and my interests. That's all life. So much of your life takes place outside of work. When students come to college and they want to take classes in sketching and drawing, or music appreciation, or film, or philosophy, and sometimes professors cook up these special topics classes on niche topics like the whatever of Taylor Swift, And when people hear about that, they just roll their eyes like, ugh, how's that going to be useful in the real world? And I think the answer is, well, it depends what you mean by useful. Is it going to make you money? Maybe not. But so much about life is not about making money. But we struggle as a culture to appreciate that. Even on some level, I feel like everybody gets it. You ask them what's important to them, what makes them happy, what do they value in their life. They're not going to say my job, my bank account, the money that I make. But
they're too busy working to stop and reflect on that.
No, but that's the way we treat it. That's our working assumption, is that it's all about money making. And anything else that's not strictly about money making is beside the point, and it's a poor use of your time and energy. I think this is a hill I'm prepared to die on, that college should be about those things, at least in equal measure. To the extent that it's about getting a career, it should also be about asking interesting questions, developing your interests and your talents and your hobbies, becoming a better citizen and a better all-around person. And I'm hopeful that even if AI changes the way that higher education operates, that maybe we can get back in touch with those sorts of roots. I hold out hope for some kind of a utopian future in which AI, robots, automation does a lot of the hard, unpleasant work for humans, and that frees humans up to just enjoy their lives more. I feel like that was the promise of this stuff initially. Eventually, the machines will do the work and we'll just enjoy ourselves. But Instead, it's like the machines are going to do the work and you're going to be unemployed.
Well, I've always had the dream that the robots would take over and we'd all just get some subsidies from the government to go do whatever we want in life, and no one would have to work a day in their life. But that I feel like people would also get bored to some extent.
Well, I don't know. It challenges such deeply held assumptions about why we're here and what we're supposed to do. And I think our assumptions about what is a good person are so tied up with being like a hardworking person and being a productive person that on some level we rebel against a more leisurely situation. And now that maybe it's coming into the frame like a possibility, it's just interesting to see how we're going to cope with that. So should college be free?
Yes, but I'm open to suggestions on maybe just making it a lot cheaper.
Yeah, I feel like free tuition could solve a lot of issues, and then the like college still gets some money from the student, but just not so much that debilitating the student's life to do anything and live their lives.
So in response to the question, should college be free, our panel replies, yes, but with some conditions. Maggie, Madeline, thank you for being on the program today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
This has been the season finale of season 1 of the Art of Conversation Radio. We'll be back in the spring, I think with some shorter, maybe half-hour episodes, but doing the same sort of content with a new round of students and faculty and special guests. This program has been brought to you by the Eileen G. Jones Honors College and the Department of Communication Studies, Media, and Journalism at Commonwealth University in Bloomsburg. I'm your host, Eric C. Miller. We'll hope to see you back here in Season 2.